You have another class here at NYFA that is about scene study. Can you give us an overview of the class?
Sure. So scene study, I compared it to like deep tissue massage or Thai massage, if you've ever had one, where they get in there and you really work on specific points of your back, let's say. So these students, scene study is right towards the end of their time for the BFA and the MFA programs. And so they have workshop material, they have gotten feedback from their classmates, their instructors, their advisors. But where scene study goes a little bit maybe deeper and different is instead of macro, it's micro. You basically put your story under a microscope. And so we focus on a few key scenes from, let's say, a thesis screenplay. And for me, it's funny because I've taught a lot of different classes here, but it's one I think I first taught just a couple of semesters ago, but it was great for me because it was like going back to the stage. It was like, so much of it's about acting. What's behind the line? Line objective action that's used in directing, acting, writing, and so that notion of, okay, well, what is my objective, right? The old cliche that you always hear with actors. But the truth is, like, why is the character saying this? How would they say it? Is this really the right language for them? Where's the scene going? Who has the power in the scene? And you begin to realize how many distinct beats are in a scene. Let's say a 3-page scene. And you think, well, 3 pages, it's only maybe about 3 minutes. I don't know how much is going on. But then you watch a really good scene, like we used She Said, the movie that was about the Weinstein trial. And there's just a scene between a reporter and one of the women that Weinstein attacked. And she's trying to get this woman to come out and go on record. And so you think, okay, well, that's what the scene's about. But then you realize there's all these beats along the way. There's the initial introduction. There's the mentioning, she's a reporter for the New York Times. She mentions the name Miramax. All of a sudden, that brings up all these things. And so you begin to realize, oh my gosh, this scene has so many pieces to it. Are you doing each piece justice? And what's really great is in that class, we also bring in actors to work with them. And last semester, I brought in a friend of mine who I had acted with a million years ago in college, and had her work on one student's project where she was sort of like the villain of the piece. And initially it was written for male, and I talked to the writer. I'm like, well, I know a friend of mine was interested in helping out. She's really good, but she's female. Are you okay with the gender switch? She's like, yeah, for the class, why not? And she brought such this like creepy, almost like a Rosemary's Baby maternal quality that was unsettling. And she never acted mean, and it made everything she said all the more dramatic. And without really changing the dialogue, but just she changed her attitude with it from what was maybe on the page. And the best part was the writer afterwards came out to me, he's like, I think I need to change the gender of that character. And I'm like, well, you don't have to. And he's like, no, but once she was doing that, kind of went with a maternal angle, it really got me thinking. That's the hope with scene study, is you begin to realize, okay, every scene, every line needs that. I always say it's precious real estate when you have a feature or a TV show, particularly if you're doing like a half-hour show on network TV. Those are only like 22 minutes long. So you have like almost no fat. And yes, of course, some TV shows have fat. There's plenty of shows, and I won't disparage any shows, but there's definitely shows where you're like, okay, well, that felt like an episode just to fatten the goose. Like it was just, they didn't know what they were doing, so they just kind of paused for an episode. But the truth is, if you're trying to get a script read, if you're trying to get people to respond to it, every line, every page has to keep them reading. And so I think like in the end of it all, scene study is asking a lot of questions of your own scenes. And then taking the lessons from, let's say it's like 2 scenes from your thesis and applying that to the entire script, so that then you're thinking about, okay, would the person really talk this way? Where's the scene going? Who's got the power in the scene? How can I reverse the reader's expectations in this moment? What am I playing with that are tropes versus what's just a cliche? So it's such a fun class to work on. I mean, it's workshop. Everyone brings in their own material. And what's really cool is even before they work on their thesis, they will revisit one of their first scripts they wrote. And I joke, I'm like, it can be humbling, but it also is really good for your ego. When you're towards the end of your time in a film school program, you realize, oh my God, I have grown, right? I have learned, and then sometimes you're like, wow, that script was actually pretty good. I need to go back to it. I need to work on it. Because the hope is our students, when they're done, they have a whole arsenal of material, not just one script. Even when Ron Howard spoke here, he's like, to show you're a writer, you have to write like a lot. It's not just about you have one script. It's like, no, you got lots of scripts. That means you're a writer, not that you've written, And so the hope is with scene study, it's like take the lessons and the work of just doing a few pages over the course of many weeks. And by doing the sort of deep tissue massage, you then realize what the whole body needs as opposed to just that one moment.
I know you had already mentioned She Said, but can you take a moment and think about a scene you absolutely love?
Oh, sure. I always joke I have like the 20 films that are like my go-tos. And I update them because time passes. And I also try to bring in more diversity in the kind of scenes I show, the kind of characters I use. But there's one I always go back to in Quiz Show. So if you don't know Quiz Show, it was about a legendary scandal from the early 1960s involving a game show called 21, where they were giving the answers to one of the contestants because they thought, well, he's kind of awesome. We want him to be our champ. So Ken Jennings, I'm sure, is brilliant and did it all on his own, but imagine, just as a metaphor, is if Ken Jennings on Jeopardy was given the answers because the producers thought, well, it's a great story to have the guy keep coming back. I'm sure he didn't, he's so smart. But in the case of 21, it turned out, yeah, no, they were giving answers to people. So this one scene I absolutely love. It's this guy comes up from Washington who's investigating. The rumors come around down the pike, or down 95, that in essence, it's rigged. And it was a period of time too. America still very much believed what they saw on the TV. We're a lot more cynical now. And with deep fakes and everything else, we have to be, right? But at the time, it's like, well, of course it's telling the truth. And we, of course, have shows like, Survivor and Big Brother and The Bachelor. So we're always a little suspect. They weren't. And so for people to realize, oh my God, like Van Doren, the character played by Ralph Fiennes, might have been fed the answers. No way, he seems so brilliant. So this scene is this lawyer who's investigating, and he talks to the guy that lost to Van Doren, played by John Turturro, Herbie Stemple. He goes to Herb Stemple's home, which is in Queens, and it is chaos. It's, dare I say, not unlike my own house. Kids playing drums, the wife's there, and her shirt's unbuttoned. She's not expecting company. It's chaotic, it's loud, it's life, And meanwhile, this attorney is a little bit fancy. He went to Harvard, as he calls it, with his very thick Boston accent. And he wants to find out what Herb, the former champion, told. He had testified in front of a jury about what happened. And initially, he can't tell him. And so that's the goal of the scene for this attorney, played by Rob Morrow, is to find out what Herbie said, what he knows. What's really great, though, is there's so much undercurrent in the scene. Herbie is Jewish, and so is this attorney, Goodwin, but he doesn't realize that. He offers him a piece of rugelach, which is, as he calls it, a Jewish delicacy, sort of like a baklava. And he keeps offering it, and the lawyer's like, no, thank you, no, thank you. And then he's like, oh, come on, it's a Jewish delicacy. He goes, oh, I'm very familiar with rugelach. Herbie and his wife look at each other with, oh, he's one of us. And so now it changes how he talks to him. Because then he's thinking, well, he's on my team. And meanwhile, the lawyer isn't so easily swayed. But then when the lawyer says, hey, can you tell me what you said? He's like, oh, no, I can't, it's sealed. So what's the lawyer do? He takes one of the pieces of rugelach, takes a bite. He goes, just between us. So then the idea of, okay, he's breaking bread with him. Now he talks to him. And he talks to him with this idea of, okay, if you want to really make a name for yourself as an attorney, you got to go after Van Doren, the current champion. Problem is, Goodwin, the lawyer, really likes Van Doren. But he's like, but think about it. It'd be like a big blonde Sputnik crashing on his head. And so the idea of who has the power at the scene, well, initially the lawyer, he's trying to get information. But then Herbie Stemple, the John Turturro character with the missing tooth, is the one who gets him to say, no, if you want to find out what happened, go after the big guy. Don't go after me. Like, I can only give you so much. Take down Van Doren. And so there is, every line means something. They even say at one point, like, well, this isn't McCarthyism. He goes, well, yeah, but think about what McCarthyism did for McCarthy. And I watch that, and every time I marvel at the work of Paul Attanasio, who wrote that script, and Robert Redford, who directed the film. So yes, it's a 30-year-old movie, 31-year-old film. One that's sort of forgotten because it came out the same year as Pulp Fiction and Quiz Show and Shawshank. So, Pulp Fiction, Shawshank, Forrest Gump. So Quiz Show was it was nominated for a lot, but isn't remembered in the same way. But to me, it does everything a scene needs to do. Every line means something. The character voices are pitch perfect. Time and place are very much all over that thing. Modern references to things like McCarthyism, to Sputnik. So I look at that, I marvel at it. And I've used that in many classes. But every time I'm also just like humbled, like, geez, how do you pull that off? But I feel like I also tell my writers, well, this wasn't the first draft. This was worked on and worked on and worked on and polished. And so, yeah, it's gonna have a lot to it because they put a lot into it. And then it was directed and edited and brilliantly acted. A bunch of Academy Award nominees in that film. So it's kind of like, yeah, this is the end result. But know what you're going after. And that writer really knew what he was going after.